Please find a seat. Well, hopefully everybody had a good lunch. Kristen, were there enough lunches? Did anybody go hungry? She doesn't. She's not telling me. We hope not. All right. We'll also have an opportunity to visit with each other at the end of the day. One benefit or one feature of these task force meetings is always a good reception afterwards. So the next hour is an important moment to check in on our progress on the task force and specifically what do we want to accomplish. And when I say we, this involves a lot of you in the room because you're looking at the executive committee, but most of the work of the task force actually involves these working groups that are comprised of a whole lot of people outside of state and federal agencies. So Patrick and Forrest and team have focused in on what are we holding ourselves accountable to achieve in 2025, and the governor released 2 days ago this list of 25 deliverables for 2025. So Patrick, lead us through it.
All right, thanks, Wade. So what I'm going to start with, just to get us rolling here, of course, is the basics. Most of you are familiar with the task force, but those of you who are not, or are here for the first time because you're a local in Marin or you're watching online, we put out a plan in January of 2021, which was really the first ever framework that tried to pull together all the various actions that are happening at the federal, state, local level across the state to try to improve wildfire resilience. And our job ever since then is to try to oversee implementation of that plan and work to try to better align the work of federal, state, local, tribal, and private agencies. And we have accomplished together an enormous amount since then. About $6 billion invested just at the state and federal level for thousands and thousands of projects throughout the state. We're now up to, thanks to our new tracker, more than 700,000 acres being treated annually, including a recent doubling of prescribed fire, which we're very proud about and hope to further enhance. We've worked hard to strengthen regional collaboratives throughout the state, particularly through the state's RFFC, Regional Fire and Forest Capacity Program. For the first time ever, we have a state agencies who's been empowered not just to get projects done on the ground, but to build capacity. And that program has really, really paid off in giving us a boost in throughout our regions. We've created a series of new tools, the Interagency Treatment Tracker that we unveiled last year, giving us a much better handle on what projects are happening and where throughout the state. CAL FIRE stepped up with this fabulous fuel treatment effectiveness tracker, which if you haven't been on it, please do. It'll show you in real time how the treatments are actually making a difference as fires are taking place, how flame lengths drop where treatments have been made, providing places for firefighters to make a stand, and reducing threats to communities throughout the state. We've also got a set of regional resource kits, core reporting metrics, et cetera, all with the idea of helping you better plan, prioritize, and report on the benefits of projects. And of course, we've established this forum to help you all better connect with each other as we all work together to address the wildfire crisis. We do that, as Wade said, primarily through a set of interagency strategies on everything from prescribed fire to reforestation to private landowner assistance, wood utilization. Some of those efforts are taking on a life of their own. For instance, the Recreation Work Group came up with a rec plan last year that was committed throughout the rural parts of the state to better integrate recreational data and facilities into forest health. They are now, led by John Wentworth, who's here from Mammoth. Thank you, John. Going statewide, county by county, to get those plans actually adopted so that these integrated regional plans aren't plans that just sit on the shelf with lofty goals, but include meaningful action at the local level. So that's just a brief summary of what we've accomplished with your help. And so as Wade said, we thought it was a good time, particularly coming out of the LA fires and with the new year, to outline our collective agenda for 2025. 25 key deliverables for 2025 that will better explain and connect us as we try to continue implementing the action plan, the new executive orders, and advance a series of new initiatives that we hope will be part of our upcoming update of the action plan later in the year. They're generally fit under 7 different categories, everything from home and wildfire community resilience to streamlining to landscape work to beneficial fire, etc. I'm going to give you sort of a brief overview of them and then talk a little bit about how we're going to get some of this work done. The first category, of course, which is first and foremost, is home and community wildfire resilience. The governor stepped up immediately with 2 executive orders asking CAL FIRE and the Office of the State Fire Marshal to accelerate their efforts on defensible space rules. You've all heard about the Zone 0 requirements that are coming. That work is well underway. And CAL FIRE has got their hazard severity zone map process well underway. I think the last series of maps, am I right, were just released this week. Really important, valuable information to help local communities better guide their projects. And then finally, we're working with a broad series of interest groups in a work group to try to develop a better state framework for work at the community level. As important as it is to have individuals do home hardening and defensible space, we need communities, much like Marin is doing, to work together to improve the resilience of the entire community. That means neighborhood by neighborhood. That means evacuation routes. That means dealing with smoke. There's a huge variety of things that need to happen at the community level. We can learn a lot from Marin and others about how to do that. So what we hope to do is to provide a stronger state framework and ask specifically, how can the state agencies help you at the local level become more resilient at the community level? The regulatory process, hopefully you've heard a lot about this. Wade will spend a few minutes after I go talking more specifically about the governor's executive order. Suffice it to say, we're going to be doing everything we can in the next year or two to streamline projects through permitting, CEQA reviews, etc. Short snapshot of the executive order. I'll skip over that because Wade's going to cover that. But suffice it to say, this is going to be a high priority for us this year, and not just at the state level. The president also put together an executive order. Not surprisingly, it's also on streamlining. So we expect to partner with our sister federal agencies to see what we can do to streamline at both the state level and the federal level to get more projects on the ground and get our wood utilization sector back where it needs to be. Huge amount going on at the landscape scale all across the state. One of our top priorities is to get a comprehensive fuel break system done statewide. You may have heard that the Forest Service recently received $75 million from Congress to work with private industry to expand their network, which is already 2,000 miles long. The next step is to connect that with the CAL FIRE network, with private networks, with local networks, so that we have a comprehensive system. It doesn't do any good to have fuel breaks that stop at property boundaries. So we're going to work really hard to come up with something that's comprehensive and will also pave the way for a lot more prescribed fire as we move forward. Regional resilience strategies, as you know, are the name of the game right now, whether it's a CWPP, whether it's an RFFC, Regional Fire and Forest Capacity Program plan, whether it's a wildlife crisis strategy plan. We're trying to do what we can to provide incentives for locals to pull together these comprehensive multi-benefit plans that then can receive block grants so we can scale up. The days of funding individual small projects need to give way to larger projects funded by bigger dollars. So we're working with all of you to try to make that happen. And then we have another series of more focused initiatives, the state agencies, state parks, CAL FIRE, Fish and Wildlife are banding together to share lessons to make sure we're doing everything we can to make our network of state ownership as resilient as it can be. State Parks, for instance, has done amazing work with prescribed fire to improve the survivability and resilience of some of the state's crown jewels. And CAL FIRE on their demonstration forest really leading the way in giving us all more knowledge about how we can be more effective in both managing our forest and providing multiple benefits. A couple new initiatives. One, we've heard from everybody, we've got to work more closely with utilities. They're spending billions of dollars that could be matching our billions of dollars. At the state level, on the ground level, we're going to be increasing our attention in partnering with them. Again, not nearly as effective if we just deal with the utility corridor, don't deal with the surrounding land. So we're going to try to do what we can to increase those partnerships over the next year and beyond. And then prescribed grazing, we've always known it's been an important part of the landscape of California. It could be a key tool in improving resilience. We're finally getting there. We've partnered with UC Agricultural Natural Resources Group and the Board of Forestry will be producing a new prescribed grazing plan very soon that will engage that sector of folks across the board on everything from prescribed fire to permitting to grazing to get the job done there. So a lot happening at the landscape level. Beneficial fire, of course, is a key part of that. We're not going to stop with some of the successes we've had in prescribed fire. We're going to be building a new prescribed fire training center network, which is going to be a confederation of sites around the state to ramp up the workforce on prescribed fire. And certainly cultural burning is going to continue to be a high priority. I hope most of you have read that the Resources Agency just reached agreement with the Karuk tribe on the first ever cultural fire program in partnership with the state. And we hope to see many more of those agreements in the coming years. Post-fire restoration. This has been, I don't know, I would have to say sort of a quieter subject that I think needs to get a lot more visibility. For instance, CAL FIRE and American Forest put out a study that I encourage you all to look at just this last week that is actually pretty alarming, that if current conditions repeat themselves, even under what they call their business as usual scenario, we may lose half of our forest in California. So it's a real wake-up call. We'll be spending a lot more time on this in our update to try to get a better handle on how we can address that problem. But I think you're going to see reforestation become a much higher priority on the state side and the federal side. And a key part of that is this new effort that's been fairly quiet but quietly effective by CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, and NRCS to develop these emergency forest restoration teams so that when a fire happens, instead of having each individual landowner submit a grant application to restore their land and hear back a year later and all work separately, they're developing block grants to RCDs and other regional entities who can then go directly to hundreds and sometimes thousands of homeowners in the affected area to get them working more quickly and more effectively. So again, reforestation is going to be high on our agenda. Sustainable wood products, Wade talked about this. We've got a whole lot of actions underway trying to get our forest sector back in California. It's clearly going to be a new priority of the administration, but it's always been a state priority. We need to do a lot more on the permitting side, the reliability side, on mass timber. So you're going to continue to see us emphasize the need to find productive ways to take care of the wood that's coming off our landscapes, in particular to help fund the important work that needs to be done. And then finally, we're trying to, of course, build a framework for better measuring the impact that we're having and that you're having on the landscape. We're on the verge of establishing a data hub, developing core reporting metrics and other measures to help make the case to the administration, the legislature, to others on the multiple benefits of the projects that we're all engaged in. And then finally, towards the summer and fall, we're going to be updating the action plan itself. And it's going to draw on all this great work that's underway. The joint strategies that are underway across the board, the science synthesis that you heard about at our December meeting, a new forest and range assessment that CAL FIRE is putting together now that's going to give us a comprehensive assessment of the health of our forests statewide. Of course, we'll draw on the tracking system, new modeling, new assessments underway to try to give us a better handle on, are we prioritizing the right areas, and what are the trade-offs between treating, say, more in the WUI versus the general forest. A lot of new information that we hope will be valuable both at the state level and the local level. And then finally, we can't say enough, is we're going to be going out to each of the regions and hearing from you, again, what are your priorities, what are your challenges, how can we better help regional entities scale up? So that's a lot to cover. I know it's a big agenda. We're getting, in the last couple of weeks that we've put this together, I'd say we're getting two big questions. One question is, why 25, other than the fact that it's nice to say 25 for 2025? Well, one answer is we have a lot to do. We can't just do 2 or 3 things and call it a day. If we're going to effectively address the forest health crisis, it's not enough just to send money and help you guys get work on the ground. We got to know where to put the wood. We've got to have the workforce. We've got to deal with reforestation. We've got to streamline. We've got to get all of that done if we're going to be effective. It's really a web where we all dependent upon each other for our piece of the action here. Not enough to focus on the communities and not the forest. So it's truly going to be a comprehensive approach as we move forward. The second question is, okay, fine, but how are you going to get all of that done? And of course, our answer is we're not going to get that done. We're going to get that done, all of us together. As Wade said, we rely almost exclusively, the task force itself, its role is to be the glue, to bring all of you folks together to get stuff done. And that's what we're going to continue to emphasize. I tend to break our partners into sort of 4 major categories. One is the obvious one that we've talked about, the federal, state, local, tribal agencies that you see up here on the board. We're going to redouble our efforts to make sure we're aligned and we're coordinated at the state, federal, local level. So that's one obviously important constituency. The second one, the most important, is you folks on the ground that are doing the real work. We're continually in contact with you, whether you're the RCD staffer in San Diego or the Fire Safe Council member in Mendocino or Siskiyou. We hope that these forums and others will help you be connected, and we'll hear from you on what tools that you need to do your work better, faster, and cheaper. So that's sort of the second community that's well represented here. The third one that you're going to hear a lot more about beginning this afternoon is the private sector that's really ramping up now with new tools like never before, satellite tools, on-the-ground tools, everything under the sun to help us hit the right projects at the right time. So that's going to be a growing partnership, certainly over the next year or two. And then finally, a sector that I don't think gets enough attention, but that have become some of our closest partners. I think Wade mentioned this group before, but it's the nonprofit sector, particularly at the state level and the local level. The local level, it's the nonprofits that are often the glue among agencies that tend to work in silos. And at the state level, it's where we're getting a lot of great ideas, money, and support. So whether you're here from Cal Forest, American Forest, Blue Forest, Pacific Forest Trust, the Moore Foundation, the Resources Legacy Fund, the new Climate and Wildfire Institute, Environmental Defense, TNC. I can't thank all of those organizations enough for giving us the money, the firepower, the energy, the ideas. This governor wants bold action, and it's going to take action from all 4 of those sectors if we're going to effectively address that crisis. So I hope we can count on continuing to work with all of you to try to tackle this very, very important agenda. And with that, I'll turn it back to Wade to talk about the executive order.
Yeah, thanks. Patrick, before we let you go, I wanted to see if any of the executive committee has questions for Patrick on the 25 deliverables. I have one, Patrick, and you sort of addressed it, but for people in the room or that are joining by Zoom, if they want to better understand how we're going to try to achieve one of these 25 objectives or deliverables, or they want to plug into that effort, how do they do that?
Yeah, I mean, the first and most obvious place is our website. It's easy to say, oh, just look at our website. We spend a lot of time on our website. It should have any kinds of information you want. You can also contact us directly. It is, to be candid, because of so much is going on, it can be difficult to follow. So certainly you can contact me directly, Forrest Schaefer, who's here directly, Kristen, who some of you I hope have met. We've got a pretty strong team, and we're always open to hearing from you and connecting with you on where you can be plugged in, because it is a big, complicated constellation of work groups and efforts underway, but we certainly don't want to leave people out.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Other questions? Yes, Supervisor.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. It's great to see that really comprehensive list. I had two of the deliverables I wanted to flag, expanding the fuel break networks and then expanding prescribed grazing and using Napa County as a data point of one. You know, we have quite a few on the ground existing fuel breaks, so hoping that the network, when that gets built out, that you'll be talking to folks on the ground to see how what they have in place works, and maybe there's some reasons that they haven't put the line right where the team thinks it should go. And then also love to hear the expansion of prescribed grazing. And when I've talked with, you know, grazers in our county, there's a lot of activity happening there, kind of to riff on your point about private sector. Yeah. And so when I've met with grazers, I've said, you know, how can we help stand up a system? And what they said to me is, just help us find our sheep when they go missing, right? So they're not looking for the county necessarily to set up something, but give them support where they need it. So that targeted support.
Great, that's good to hear.
Jen, interested in your perspective as the chair here.
Yeah, thank you. And just to talk about fuel breaks, absolutely. It's going to take everybody coming together to look at where's the best place on the ground. I know that Chief Tyler and I and others have gotten together and just doing initial conversations on what looks like, what makes sense. It's critical for certainly our fire suppression activities to be able to have those fuel breaks. So thank you for bringing that up. And then I just, you know, so appreciate this next version of our goals that we have. And it's really built on everything that we've done for the past 4 or 5 years. This is the next iteration, and you can see and hear all of the lessons that we've learned, all the places that we need to still have attention to, and I really appreciate the systemic look at it. Like you said, Patrick, you can't just take one. You have to take part of everything, because it's the whole that's going to make this move. And then, Chief, do you have anything you want to add or no?
Well, I think,
Speak into this.
I should probably speak into that. I think, you know, the task force has been doing a lot of great work, and the action plan that came out had the 99 actionable items. And so for 2025, really trying to drill down to, you know, our 25 actionable items will really show the great progress that we're all doing together.
Yeah, that's great. So Patrick, by our December meeting, then we'll schedule a presentation around where we're at specifically on the 25 deliverables. One question I asked is to say, look, if we're setting ourselves up for these to be deliverables this year, we need to achieve these deliverables. So you've set an ambitious agenda for the year. I appreciate that, and we'll look forward to progress.
Yeah, if I can here too, just
Joe.
yeah, just to close out. We're gonna get through the 25 tasks just alone on Patrick's enthusiasm and energy behind, you know, what's at hand. And you know, I know when we sat down with Patrick and some of Forrest and the team, we asked the same question: why 25? Can we just like focus down? And they've put the time and energy in, and so there's places that we all can see where we're going to be able to plug in, and so that's where that collective kind of group comes together. And so again, I'm confident that we're going to be able to make progress on all these. So, thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Joe.